and welcome to this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall, and joining us in studio today as we continue on dealing with the pandemic and COVID-19, Victoria Grasela from the United Way. She is the Vice President of Community Engagement.
Of Marketing and Community Engagement. Which just means I do a little bit of everything.
And we thank you for coming in today.
Well, thank you for having me.
One of the big things that you've been dealing with and that we've seen a lot of, especially in news, is the hunger and the need for food and the people who need food out there. And that's why we brought Victoria in today to talk about that aspect here in Greater New Bedford. The Hunger Commission, the biggest, I guess, I was going to say they are the biggest organization, I guess, with food to supply food to people in the region. So we're the only local food rescue and delivery service in our region. The Hunger Commission is actually unique to United Way. Not every United Way has this. We're the only ones in the country that do have a Hunger Commission, and our sole purpose is just to pick up food where there may be excess food and then get it to food pantries locally. So you're in a sense the hub for all the food pantries in the region. And as we were talking about, I mean, your food pantries go, I mean, obviously locally here in New Bedford, but you're all the way into Wareham. So, I mean, there's a lot of pantries dotting the area.
We serve as far as Wareham, and then we also go out to Fall River as well. We partner with the United Way of Greater Fall River on some programming out that way, and so we are servicing a good service area to make sure everybody gets what they need on the South Coast.
In a regular year, without a pandemic, there are thousands of pounds of food that are distributed every year.
Yeah.
And describe a typical year, I guess, as far as need versus supply.
Yeah, I mean, a typical year, we probably deliver, maybe about 300,000 pounds of food, ranging from fresh produce to, frozen meats to dairy to non-perishable food items, the whole span of food. This year, of course, we're going to see an uptick. I mean, the pandemic has put, just a damper on so many families, and food is certainly a need right now, and will continue to be. Right now, since March 13th, around that time period, we've delivered over 150,000 pounds of food already. So just in that 2-month span, we've already seen a huge uptick in what we're doing. We also know about a lot of food programs coming into the area that we're helping to set up and get the food out. And so that's going to kick that number up even higher. The demand is just so high right now. And so we are doing everything we can to make sure we are getting people what they need.
Nationally, I've seen stories where obviously the demand is huge. The food is the need for food is huge as well, because there's, I don't want to say there's a food shortage, but I mean, you can't go to the grocery store right now and just buy anything you want. There are limits. I mean, even if they have items, there are limits to how much you can buy.
Agreed. Yep.
So that puts a constraint on what you can do. By the way, I should also mention Victoria sort of manages the Hunger Commission here for the United Way, which is why she's here doing that. You were telling me off camera there are 18 to 20 pantries.
Depending on the time of the year is about what we service. Right now we are servicing a couple more as well. Some of the local churches have done a fantastic job of doing some pop-up pantries as well. So we're trying to help service those as best we can. Of course, we're prioritizing those ones that we service all year round. But we've also found that some of the pantries have closed due to the pandemic too, due to safety concerns with their volunteers and staff, just their close quarters. That so many of these pantries are typically like in a basement somewhere, or in the back closet, and so they are so close together that they've had to limit what they are able to do. So when we've had a pantry maybe closed for a couple weeks, we've been able to service others in their place.
Is it more difficult for pantries that are in a city, for example, where there's a closer amount of people and just the proximity versus a town where some people might have to get in a car or somehow get to the pantry?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix. It's definitely a mix. I mean, like I said, a lot of these pantries are just very small in general. and they are, at a local church, or there may be a full organization that is doing this food distribution. But yeah, a lot of people are traveling some distance to get it. What we've always heard from Damien's, which is in Wareham, that a good amount of their clientele is actually from New Bedford.
Really?
It is, yeah. They've said this to us for years. We've been hearing this, and I'm not sure why that is, because there are quite a few pantries locally in New Bedford, but there are a lot going down that way. And I think maybe sometimes they have a better amount, like the different types of food that they have that we might not be able to get in New Bedford for one reason or another. I also think because they're open on Saturdays, it makes a big difference too. A lot of the food pantries are open Monday to Friday, and they're open just that normal, 9 to 5 hour or 9 to 3 or whatever it may be. They're the only ones open on the weekends. So a lot of people travel down that way because that's what they can do due to their work schedules.
For people who don't understand, how does the United Way get its food? I know there's a lot of food drives during the course of the year that different organizations put together, but that's not all the food you get. So tell us a little bit about the process of getting food.
So food drives are a very small piece of what we do, except during the holiday season. It's
they're
our
key. Don't get me wrong,
they're
key.
I mean, they are key.
Yeah.
They're huge for supplementing things like the shelf-stable macaroni and cheese, the tuna fish, the peanut butter, stuff kids eat. That's really what you're getting from food drives, and that's so needed because kids are so picky. We all know that. And so that's really where we're getting those key items. A lot of our food comes from the Boston Food Bank locally. It also comes from a number of local venues, like Sid Wainer & Son has been a huge partner of ours for years. They are constantly calling us and saying, hey, we have this extra food, can you come pick it up? And what's great about that is that's all healthy food. So it's not just about food. Like, we want to make sure that we're getting healthy food into the hands of folks as well, and not just the shelf stable that can be very high in sodium and other things like that. We also partner with the YMCA South Coast Sharing the Harvest Farm, which is in Dartmouth. All their produce that they grow there, which is usually about 60,000 pounds a year, that all gets donated to us. We are their sole provider. We bring those out to food pantries. We also do a mobile market from July to October, depending on the season and how things are growing.
I was going to say, are you limited in the food that you're able to dispense because of the time of year? I would imagine that, hypothetically, March is a difficult time to get food versus September, because obviously in this area the growing season is...
It's not yet, yeah. We're just starting to get into that. So it depends. I mean, we definitely get, an abundance of fresh produce during the summer, of course, and then into the fall. But with Sid Wainer, they're able to get fresh produce from all over the country. So right now, they applied for a USDA grant. It started last week. We're going to be distributing starting in the coming days to distribute 10,000 boxes of fresh produce. So those produce boxes will be 20 pounds a piece. They'll have different fruits and vegetables in there. And those obviously are not being grown locally because it's not the season for a lot of it. So those are coming in from their places that are in California and other places around the country. So we're able to get some of that stuff all year round.
Is it, obviously produce is perishable. So you have, not you, but the organization has to be able to
get it in and out quickly.
Exactly.
Yes. So there is a lot of behind the scenes. So as we are preparing for the USDA grant and all these boxes to come in, we've been talking probably about 3 to 4 weeks about how this is going out and making sure that we can get it to organizations and food pantries that need them, and then getting them out to clients very quickly. The difference with this fresh produce opposed to if we picked up, maybe if Stop and Shop have an overage and we picked up from them, is this is very, very, very fresh produce.
Right.
It's coming direct from the suppliers, so it doesn't have that time where it kind of takes to get onto the trucks for Stop and Shop and then out into the grocery store and then to the person. Like, this is coming straight from.
How much time does it usually take? I mean, obviously you've got to coordinate it, but there can't be a lot of time from the time that the produce comes to the time that you have to get it out.
Right. So we typically, whenever we get fresh produce in, we try and get it out within a 24-hour period.
Wow. Okay.
So when we get these food boxes in, that day they will be in the hands of folks. And then some of it will be the second day. But we try and get as much fresh produce in and out the door as fast as we can. When we're picking up from a grocery store like Stop and Shop or Sharing the Harvest Farm, we try and get it in and out.
I was going to say, so grocery stores do help.
We do, yeah. So a lot of them partner with the Greater Boston Food Bank, and so their overages are spoken for through different food pantries. But there's times when they call us that whoever their distributor is that gets it out isn't able to take it. So they'll say, hey, can you come pick this up? And so we have a great relationship with all the grocery stores locally. So we are getting food that way. But right now, like Sid Wainer is our huge partner. I mean, they're going to be doing so much for this community by bringing this fresh produce in. We're hoping to extend that grant over the summer and into the fall as well, which will be huge because we know that need's just going to keep upticking.
I would assume that grant's hyper competitive.
Yeah,
to get.
It is from what we hear, yeah.
So
it's great
to get it the first time it's got to be huge, and I would
huge.
assume, like you just said, it's going to be even, the need is going to be even greater in the second round.
Of course.
But you were telling me off camera, it's only like 6 weeks, right?
It's only 6 weeks right now, yeah. I mean, the second round will be 8 weeks, and so we'll go through it the whole summer. So the hope is that we can continue to extend this grant with them in the USDA because it is going to be such a need. I mean, the fresh produce, it's important for so many reasons, as we all know. I mean, the nutrition piece, and then if you have children at home, it's teaching them to eat healthy earlier in life. So it's just such a need, and you want to try and move as far away from those shelf items that have that high sodium in them. So that's where the partnerships with Sid Wainer or the grocery stores that are giving us the fresh produce or the Sharing the Harvest Farm are so important right now.
You talk about the non-perishable items, which you get a lot. I would assume that those the shelf life for those are obviously greater.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. You don't have to dispense those, but there's, you know, we were talking off camera about milk.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the stories that we see in the news, and it's a national story, but just the farmers have milk because schools are not getting their supply anymore.
Right.
But that's a hard commodity for you to distribute in a timely manner.
It is. It's difficult on something like a milk because it's not just. It's usually the quantity that comes in for something like a milk, especially now, is that we're getting such large quantities people are asking us to take, and so then it's finding a refrigerated space to keep that chilled so we can get it out over the course of days, because getting it out in one day is probably not going to happen just with the quantities that we've been approached with. The other piece is making sure that it gets to people quickly, of course, just like anything else, because it does have a smaller shelf life. And
roughly 10 days.
I've heard stories of people freezing it, but we don't recommend that.
Yeah.
I know I've been on a couple calls where they say, oh, you just freeze the milk. I would not recommend doing that just for so many reasons. You know, we want to make sure that it's fresh stuff that we're getting out. And so we haven't done anything with dairy just yet. It's mostly been the fresh produce and the shelf stable. And then we've also gotten some calls about frozen meat. So just yesterday, earlier this week, we were able to pick up some frozen meat from a distributor who had extra beef that was frozen. So that's huge for us.
Is the selection of food that you have right now, because if you go into a grocery store, and we were talking about this, the selection of food is limited. So I can only assume that the selection of food that you have right now is limited as well.
It is. And I mean, our food is always limited based on the season, based on who has extra food that we're able to pick up. So there always is like this, we're not sure what we're going to have on any given day. It really depends on what the distributors have that we're able to collect from them.
And it's so important because I know, having dealt with the Hunger Commission, one of the biggest things you want healthy food.
We do, yeah. That's really the shift we've made over the past 10 years is getting more healthy food into the hands of folks. The Marion Institute has been wonderful, where they are trying to teach people, what you can cook with some of these fresh produce, or the Sharing the Harvest Farm has recipe cards that will teach you what you can make that's different. When we have our mobile markets during the summer, we get eggplant, and a lot of people are like, well, I just don't know what to do with it. So we have a recipe card saying, here, why don't you try making this? And then they come back the next week and they're like, oh, we loved it. We're going to take that again. Whereas before they were just passing by it and saying, that's not for me. I don't want it. So it's also about the education piece of letting people know what else you can do with some of this stuff.
Are you able to right now service the people that you're getting? Have you had enough food?
We have, yeah. We've been able to have enough food for those who need it. I know some pantries have struggled a little bit, so we are trying to do our best to get them what they need. But there's always going to be people who don't want to go to a food pantry, and those are the people that we worry about. Maybe they can't make it there because of transportation, or maybe they can't load their kids into the car to get down there too. I mean, that's always a safety concern right now too. So some of our programs are even going to be driving some of these boxes that we're getting from Sid Wainer right to their homes.
Yeah, well, you've told me about that before, that you do that. And
we don't typically do that.
No,
but I mean,
I was thinking, I think you had told me before, like elderly folks or something like that fall through the cracks.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Pace, who is a huge food pantry in New Bedford, they're doing a lot of these pop-up markets and some delivery to homes. Coastline Elderly, same thing. They're delivering to homes as much as they can through Meals on Wheels and then other programs they have, because we know that transportation is an issue. We know that some people don't have the mobility in general to go out, and they're suffering. And so we are trying our best to get to those folks.
We are talking to Victoria Grasela. She is the Vice President of Marketing and Community Engagement for the United Way.
We really like long titles at
I know.
United Way.
I don't know how that fits on a business card.
It's very tiny.
But we're talking about the Hunger Commission here that the United Way coordinates and the needs and what have you right now. Talk to me. We were talking off camera, and I'm just national number. 1 in 5 people right now are unemployed. The need is people are struggling right now.
Right.
What are you folks seeing? And I know that you're not at the pantries, but I'm sure that you're getting reports and what have you. What are you seeing at the pantries?
There's definitely way more people coming to pantries now than ever before. I know when I was speaking with Pam Kiesler recently, who runs Pace in New Bedford, they went from serving 1,000 people a month to 1,000 people a week. That's wow, huge increase. So they're just one pantry out of 18 that we service that are seeing that uptick. So we know that will continue as we're still trying to get people back to work, and as the state reopens and the country reopens, we're going to continue to see that need grow.
And the types of people that you're seeing. I mean, I've heard reports that some of the biggest donors over the course of the year are those that now are needing help. Yeah,
we've seen that both through our Hunger Commission work and then also what we're doing with our Help United Fund. We're seeing names on some of these lists, and they have been huge United Way supporters for years, and now they're receiving services. And that's great that we're able to help them now when it's their time of need. But it's definitely a reality for so many folks that we weren't prepared for this. I don't think anybody really was, and so they're finding themselves in a time of need, and so it's great that they're able to come out and get what they need and ask for that help.
How has the organization, in a sense, changed? And obviously it's had, well, let me not change this. How has it had to adapt over the last 2 months? Because, I mean, you talk about Pace going from 1,000 a month to 1,000 a week. I'm assuming the game plan that you guys have had has totally changed.
It changes daily.
Oh, really?
It changes daily. I mean, our staff is all working remotely, of course, for our safety. But we are planning to go back soon. That's the hope. But on our Hunger Commission side work, we have hired a second part-time driver, that is a second part-time person to help with the Hunger Commission, to go out with our driver, so the added food they're able to handle together and not just one person. On our family center side, because we do operate a family resource and development center right in our office building, they're doing the remote check-ins with folks as well, either via video platform or just phone calls checking in to say, hey, how are you doing on food? What other resources can we help you with? So our work has completely transformed.
So do the pantries call you? Do they say, hey, we've got, and I'm Pantry X, and we were planning on 50 people and we got 150 people. Is that how, on a week-to-week basis, are you getting that sort of?
It kind of depends. It depends. Like, we service, these 18 pantries weekly. So our driver, Mike, who's wonderful, is out there and saying, hey, are you seeing an uptick? Do you need more food? And then he adjusts what he brings them based on what they say their need is.
Right.
I've gotten calls from some pantries who are saying, last week we ran out of food and so we need more. So we doubled their orders for the coming week. Or somebody who say, hey, we're going to do a pop-up this week. Any chance you have extra of some food item, can you bring it to us? And so it's kind of a mix, and if Mike's at a food pantry and they say, hey, like, we're running low on something, he'll stock them as best he can. So calls come in every which way about need and just making sure everybody has what they need within the pantries.
What are the food items that, obviously fresh produce, fresh vegetables, that's the goal. What are the things that you look to get or hope to get when people donate?
Yeah.
Like I said, the macaroni and cheese is always, or spaghetti is always a big thing too.
Pasta's huge.
and that's great.
Yeah.
Because there are worse things to eat than pasta. But what are the things that you look for
So if we're doing a food drive, we typically look for the things like peanut butter, jelly, pancake mix, cereals, any kind of canned meat, canned vegetables, of course, pastas. There's a good list like that we're always looking for. That's on our website as well if people were interested. And then we're also doing drives right now consistently at the YMCAs locally. So they're collecting that food for us and we're picking up weekly to help additional stuff.
So, I mean, you guys feel good giving that out.
We do. I mean, that's still stuff that we need. Like we said earlier, some kids are very picky and they're not going to eat some of this fresh produce. So we recognize that and know that this is still very much so a need. But we're also always looking for, if there's a restaurant that has overages of fresh produce or some kind of dairy item or something, we're happy to go pick that up at the restaurant and make sure it gets where it needs. Some of those items we can't pick up from just the average person that may have extra at their home. Just for so many safety concerns, we're not able to do that. So that's why with drives, you really have to go that non-perishable route. But if it is a company or it is a restaurant that isn't able to serve, we're happy to pick up from them because we know that it's followed the Board of Health guidelines. Right. And so that's what we always have to worry about on our end too.
I was thinking of the kale that you were talking
about. Kale, lots of kale. We've gotten lots of kale.
I was thinking of the kids. They're not going to touch that.
They're not touching that. I mean, it's great. I mean, kale's great. I mean, especially locally.
I love my kale soup, but I don't know if a 4-year-old's going to sit there. And
I can't say my nephew is going to pick that up at any point soon. He's 4. And so, I mean, certain things are going to appeal to different people. So obviously, if you're having kale soup, maybe your 4-year-old child is not having that. So then you do make that mac and cheese or whatever it is. So we have to appeal to all audiences, which can be tricky.
Is the Greater Boston Food Bank that you're talking about, are you vying for food against, I don't want to say against, but I guess it is, against other organizations?
Statewide, yeah. It's completely statewide. They service 90 different communities throughout Massachusetts. And I don't know if I'd say we're vying for food. I mean, we're all getting what we need in the end of the day. Some days, some weeks they only have carrots and maybe like 4 or 5 different items to choose from, whereas other days they might have more than that that you can choose from. So you can order from them is how it works. Yeah. The trick has been because we've tried to do more of it, of course, getting more food in, is so many people have ramped up their ordering right now for so many reasons that it's actually hard to get onto one of their trucks to get more down here. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, that's where we've struggled because we've been trying to do more in Wareham because obviously the need's so high. Damien's Pantry, which is the largest pantry in Wareham, was closed for about a month. And so we were trying to get a pop-up pantry going down that way. And we were having trouble getting food onto a truck to get down here. So there's just so many different pieces that you have to juggle right now, whether it's the transportation piece or the types of food coming in or just the coordination in general on our team.
I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the volunteers that have helped the organization over the years, but certainly now, but it's not the same world right now for volunteers. Talk a little bit about that because I was surprised when you told me really you can't have volunteers right now.
It's tough and it's so surprising. So when the pandemic first started back in March, we got calls right away saying, hey, I'd love to volunteer. I'm home, I can work at night because, my remote schedule allows me to do that, or, I'm laid off right now, so I have time to volunteer. I know you can use the help, but what we're finding is so many places aren't able to take volunteers due to safety precautions, or, like our office, like so many others, are working remotely, so we can't have volunteers coming in because there's nowhere for them to physically come in to help. On the food pantry side, Damien's actually had to close because of the volunteer piece. They were trying to keep their volunteers safe, and because it's such a small quarters, they were concerned that they wouldn't be able to meet the demand of people coming in with a very limited number. So some places have had to make that adjustment. The Sharing the Harvest farm in Dartmouth typically can take hundreds of volunteers a week. Right. They can only take 3 at a time right now.
Wow.
It is a large place too. It is a large space, but just due to the restrictions that we're all facing, they're not able to take as many people. And of course, volunteers have to be mask gloved. Of course, we're providing all of that. We're working locally with Reynolds DeWalt, who is donating face shields and masks. And so Mike, our Hunger Commission driver, has all of that on his truck and is giving those out to pantries as well. So in addition to food, we're doing, PPE distribution as well.
What is the normal, and obviously everybody's different, but what, if you had to describe the normal distribution of food at a pantry, what would it look like right now?
So right now, depending on the food pantry, it's limited volunteers within the pantry, and then they have a lot going on outside. So most distribution is happening outside, curbside, just like everything else. If you went to a food pantry right now, chances are wherever you go, it's taped off every 6 feet. There's a line thing. You have to stand here. The person goes to the window or the door or whatever that may be, lets them know how many people are in their household. The volunteers behind the scene are then packing a bag based on the household number and then bringing it out to the door for them. And they're taking it and putting it in their cars. I mean, nationally, you're seeing a lot of these drive-ups. That's not typically the case
huge.
around here.
They're big cities. I've seen, Dallas and other places that are just
lines.
Miles.
Yeah. That's not typically what you're going to see around here because of the space issue. A lot of these pantries, like I said, are very small and they're kind of tucked away. So there's no way to do drive-through on most of this.
Right.
So it is a lot of walk-up that we're seeing. When we do our mobile markets with the Greater New Bedford Health Center, those are all walk-ups. People will drive their car close by and make sure that they're parked close by so they can bring it to their car easily. And we've had volunteers and staff that are helping to carry that to the cars too. But it's a totally different time because before, somebody would just walk into the pantry and just like at a farmer's market say, I want this, I want this, I want this. That's not the case anymore.
Before we let you go, I want you to just give some key information to folks, people who are actually looking for food and don't know where to go.
Yeah.
What can they do?
So there's so many different options depending on the area you're in. So we do have a comprehensive list that we've put together that we are updating as soon as we get information in based on who's having pop-up markets happening, who's open, who's modified hours, all of that. That all can be found on our website, unitedwayofgnb.org. Our Hunger Commission page is up to date and lets you know who's got food, what days they're serving, what times they're serving. Most of the restrictions that food pantries have lessened. So typically when you go to a food pantry, you probably have to bring a photo ID, proof of how many people in your house. Like there's a whole list of things that you might need at a pantry. Most of those restrictions have lifted right now just to get people through quicker.
Get in quickly, yeah.
Get in quick and out, because if not, you're standing outside for long periods of time. It's longer that you're exposed outside, your volunteers are exposed, so everything has completely changed and eventually will go back to what it was. But right now, just check out the website and you'll be able to see who's open and what you need.
For people who want to donate and want to help, I'm assuming that it's better to give money.
It is.
But
it is.
For people who want to help, what would you tell them right
It's
now?
a mix. So if you want to help and you have some non-perishable food, like I said, the local YMCAs, Dartmouth, New Bedford, and Wareham are all collecting food for United Way's Hunger Commission. We're picking up once a week from each of these sites. So again, if you wanted to donate pastas, peanut butter, canned meat, rice, anything like that that's non-perishable, shelf stable, has a good life on that, you're able to donate there. If you are a restaurant and you have large quantities of other types of food, you can give us a call. All of our contact information is right on the website. And just let us know and we'll coordinate a pickup with you. But if you wanted to do something and you don't have any of this food laying around that you were able to donate, money a lot of the times is better because we can then bulk order. And that's a big piece that I don't think people always realize, is that when we bulk order, of course, we're going to get a better deal. We can get more of one specific item we know pantries need. So we are doing bulk ordering as well.
Give the people the website one more time for those that don't know.
So it's unitedwayofgnb.org.
Victoria, great talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
A lot of information today. Yes. We'll stay in touch, that's for sure.
Absolutely, thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.